nervous, on the surface I look fine. My brain feels heavy, my traumatized mind. And I'm so tired, I can't feel my eyes. Whoa, whoa. I'm petty, but I know how to lie. I feel feelings that I can't describe. I'm not breathing, but I'm still alive. Whoa, whoa.
Shout out to Neoliberal Tears for this.
Shout out to Twitter/X user Neoliberal Tears for resurfacing this clip.
Neoliberal Tears commented at the top of the show, "What happened to my music?" One of my favorite commenters.
Yeah, big
Somebody
fan.
has so much affection for me.
Keep it in mind.
I'ma give it everything I got.
Prepare for a holiday season of Neoliberal Tears.
Hello, and welcome to Nightcap with Neoliberal Tears. I'm the one and only Neoliberal Tears. Can't be replicated, can't be copied, co-opted, although Ryan Grimm will certainly try. Just kidding. Welcome to tonight's stream. Today's book, I don't know, I thought maybe I should make it like a regular thing, advertising books that I think are brilliant. Not that I think are brilliant, by acclaimed Palestinian authors. So yesterday we highlighted Palestinian activist, author, and also a medical doctor, Rada Karmi. She's Palestinian British, and she wrote the brilliant book, One State, The Only Democratic Future for Palestine, Israel. And today's book, I thought I should highlight, is this one, Crude Capitalism, Oil Corporate Power, and the Making of the World Market. It's written by Professor Adam Hania, and I highly recommend it. He goes over the connection between oil as a resource and the connection between the client states in West Asia, capitalism, and how it all connects to Palestine. Super recommended. Cannot recommend it enough. You can purchase it by going to www.versobook.com/product/2760-crude-capitalism. I really recommend it. Trust me. And Professor Adam Hania is also Palestinian Australian. So that's his background. And I believe he also lived, if I'm not mistaken, in one of the petro states. Might have been Dubai. But so he also brings that experience to his writing. Highly recommend. So today I thought we should react together as a family, as a YouTube family, to this clip. And it was incoming freshman Congress member Chris Rabb, who this channel supports because Congressmember Rabb, or incoming Congressmember Rabb, supports the one-state solution with equal rights from the river to the sea, as we covered here before, and the right of return of Palestinian refugees and their descendants. So he gets the coveted Neoliberal Tears endorsement. Go, Chris. And he was interviewed by another friend of the show, Bestie, Crystal Ball, about what he thinks about, first of all, how he would serve in Congress, whether he would endorse Hakeem Jeffries for Speaker of the House. He answered that question. I have lots of thoughts about that. But also, my bestie, Crystal Ball, asked him what his analysis is of Graham Plattner and what his reaction is to some of the criticism Graham Plattner is facing. So let's hear it from Chris, incoming freshman Congress member and One State Solution supporter, and endorsed by Neoliberal Tears, Chris Rabb. Let's go.
So to discuss the future of the Democratic Party this morning, we are very fortunate to be joined by Pennsylvania State Representative Chris Rabb. He is the Democratic nominee for Pennsylvania's 3rd Congressional District. Welcome, sir, and congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. We followed your election with interest. You had a lot of powerful forces going against you, a lot of interesting things that happened there. What do you think is the message that your pretty, clear-cut, fairly overwhelming victory in this primary sends to the party?
Yeah, it was a stunning defeat of entrenched politics here in Philadelphia, in the bluest congressional district in the entire nation, where we had not had an open seat, no incumbent on the ballot, first time in 35 years, against a political class that was united against this progressive. And it was a 15-point win. And I think it's a resounding affirmation that organized people beat organized money every time.
And you seem to be taking I don't know that it's a novel approach, but you've gone out of your way to go and campaign for other candidates, both incumbents who you support, like Summer Lee, who you're likely to serve with in Congress, others who, are challenging incumbents and are running sort of upstart campaigns across the country. Why has that been important to you? What role do you feel like you are serving and that you want to serve?
Well, to be clear, I'm a movement candidate, and that means a movement has allowed me to have a collective victory. And that means that whatever political capital, whatever momentum I have as the presumptive next member of Congress for the city of Philadelphia means I got to pay it forward. And it's also in my best interest. I want to come in with this largest, oldest progressive class of members in U.S. history. So the only way you can do that is by showing up for others who are viable, substantive candidates. And I'm really excited about our not just taking back the House. I mean, there's
sorry. So just right off the bat, I just have to react to, I feel like my past self from 2019 came to warn me, I don't know, in this, as he was talking, because I just remembered how many people, we had a class of Democratic Congress members coming in 2020 when after Biden won, who all supported, there were more than, I think, 30 of them who supported Medicare for all, higher minimum wage, public, list codifying Roe v. Wade. That was even much more than 30. And Democrats got a majority in the House. Democrats got a majority in the Senate and the presidency. And what did we get? Bupkis. We got bupkis. We got excuses. We got a slap in the face, a double slap in the face, a triple slap in the face. And as always, we also got Cobra subsidies. Nancy Pelosi's one trademark invention, how to funnel money to insurance companies and call it helping the people. So I feel for Chris. I think he is sincere in wanting to achieve these progressive goals that people need. I think I covered when I talked about Chris, besides supporting the one-state solution, which I'll keep mentioning because that's great. I'm so glad he's joining Rashida in that. He also supported abolishing ICE back in 2017 when he was a state representative. I think Democrats are so not going to abolish ICE. I mean, there's another article I think I referred to in the stream that had to do with Chris, that quoted Senator Chris Murphy from Connecticut, blue state, mind you. And Chris was saying, no, we're not going to abolish ICE. He went to an abolish ICE rally, Chris Murphy, not Chris Rabb, Chris Murphy. And Chris Murphy said to the people protesting, we're not going to abolish ICE. We're just going to retrain ICE. Why can't you? And then he admonished the protesters. And he said, why can't you guys get behind my triangulated, perfect, centrist middle ground solution? So I don't think a junior Congress member, as much as I value Chris Rabb, and I think he's legit as can get. I think first of all, junior Congress members or freshman Congress members are never taken seriously by the party. They are usually relegated to the sidelines of the sidelines. Right? The Democratic Party still operates on a system of seniority. And even in a world where Representative Rabb was a senior member of the Democratic Party, he would still be marginalized because people like Hakeem Jeffries are not interested in changing anything except voting for more what? Cobra subsidies. That's right. You know it.
The big difference between having a Democratic majority and having a party that knows how to lead in the belly of the beast and in the most adverse times in modern history. Those are two different things on the Venn diagram of national politics. So I want to make sure that we have a critical subset of Democrats who are going to vote in furtherance of shared prosperity and fighting fascism and taxing the ultra wealthy and having structural changes that the base is demanding, but corporate Democrats refuse to acknowledge or commit to.
You were critical of Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries, which became a campaign issue, actually, for you. One of your opponents had some pretty interesting things to say about that. But I'm just curious, since you have won the Democratic nomination, just so people know, Pennsylvania's 3rd congressional district is one of the most Democratic in the entire country. So very much expected that you will be sworn in with the next class of members of Congress. How has the party responded to your victory? Have you had any outreach from, the sort of establishment leaders of the Democratic Party?
Oh, absolutely. They've all reached out to me quickly, and I appreciate that outreach. We got to build relationships. We got to figure out how we can work together. But I would push back a little bit. I wouldn't say I was critical of Hakeem Jeffries per se, but it's just when someone tries to.
He just criticized corporate Democrats, right, in the previous answer, and now he's taking it back and saying, "Well, I wouldn't criticize Hakeem Jeffries per se, and we have to build relationships." When people tell you they're trying to build relationships, we know what that means. It means holding back criticism publicly, right? Because the one thing narcissists and members of Congress who are narcissists, the one thing they care about is their media image. If you criticize them publicly, mind you, they don't mind criticism in private. They hear it all the time from other members. But the way you step off track is when you start criticizing corporate Democrats by name, and I mean specifically Hakeem Jeffries. When you start going after them in the media, that's when they put a target on your back. That's when they start marginalizing you, sabotaging you, basically doing the thing of like, I guess the physical analogy to this is like if someone like puts their foot up so that you can trip over them. That's what happens. So already Chris is thinking very sweetly, very, I think he's sincere and good-hearted, I do. But he thinks that by holding off criticism of Hakeem Jeffries publicly, it's going to win him some brownie points, or maybe he'll be able to advance a progressive legislation because he avoids criticizing Hakeem Jeffries publicly. And that's not politics. Politics is about, whatever, like, what do I know? But my version of progressive politics, or if you are serious about getting meaningful change from the Democratic Party, which is going to fight you tooth and nail, you have to embarrass people in the media. You have to use the media to your advantage. It's your only advantage as a freshman Congress member, in a way. You're not going to get a good committee assignment, trust me. And even if you did, you'd be marginalized anyway. You can't force concessions out of Hakeem Jeffries by being nice. The only thing you're building here, you can build relationship with Hakeem Jeffries. That's great. He's not going to give you anything for that. Anyway.
Say, will you support him? My answer is, what is any candidate for majority leader, for Speaker of the House? How is their leadership going to resonate with how I got elected to office and who else is running? I don't know who's running. So I think that's important. It's not about the individual. It's about who seeks that position to what end. And that has to be aligned with the electorate and the constituents I seek to represent on January 3rd. But I also know that it's a body of 435. You need 218 votes to get anything done. And we have to figure out what we can agree on, and the things we can't agree on.
This strategy that I believe Congressmember Rabb is sincere about, of just like trying to find common ground with the 435 members and you know what that's going to lead, where that's going to land you in terms of policy, concrete policy that you're all going to agree about? You know what I'm going to say? Cobra subsidies. You're definitely not getting a tax on the wealthy. That's for fucking sure. Playing hardball, a version of what I'm, I guess, talking about, it would have been to answer Crystal's question. You're a junior Congress member anyway. You can take risks at this point. You know, they're not going to primary you next month. You have 2 years. Playing hardball would have been to use your opportunity in this interview, which, trust me, Hakeem Jeffries' aides are going to listen to. That's what Congress members do. They spend their entire day on Congress members, and their aides and their interns and all this people, all of their entire circle that gets paid to help them. All they focus on is, what did people say about me in the media? And, you know, putting people on a nice list and a shit list. That's what Hakeem Jeffries is doing right now. So Congressmember Raab could have used this opportunity to say something to the extent of, no, I would never support Hakeem Jeffries for House Speaker. He was House Speaker last time, and we got nothing out of it. Actually, we got a Trump presidency out of it in Republican majorities in the House and the Senate. Democrats failed people. We need new leadership. I would vote for anyone but Jeffries. I would vote for Summer Lee for House Speaker, who is from my state of the Commonwealth. I think Pennsylvania has the Commonwealth. I would vote for her as House Speaker. What, does Summer Lee want to be House Speaker? Absolutely fucking not. But throw her name out there. Make Hakeem Jeffries sweat a little bit. You're already conceding. You're not going to build a relationship with Hakeem fucking Jeffries. He's not your friend. These people are not your fucking friends. My God. They would throw you under the bus in a millisecond, no matter how nice you are to them in the media. And Republicans have no problem throwing their own people under the bus and then forgiving them 2 days later. Because you know why? Because it's called politics. And you don't take things personally. You're either standing for the things you want to achieve, or you play nice and try to be friends with everybody and bake cookies. And that's going to get you bupkis. Bupkis. Capiche? I still don't know which language capiche comes from, but anyway.
Those of us who are left of the party to move the party forward. And those are things that have to happen simultaneously.
So you'd say you're not a no on Hakeem Jeffries as potential speaker, but you're a we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I need to know who's running, right? I mean, the reality is he could be the only one on the ballot, right? So it's a non-issue there. But that's not, to me, that is not as important as how we hold whomever is running and whoever wins to account. And that's not based on my personal preferences or
I would only vote for Hakeem Jeffries as House Speaker if he forces a bill on the floor in support of a public healthcare option, a Medicare for all option. There. Is that so hard? Why is it so hard? Why is it so hard?
It's based on how I got elected. If those leaders work for the members put them in those positions of power. How do we hold them to account? And how do they express their willingness to do the things that a larger subset of Democrats in Congress want? And, you know, that is going to be a back and forth. You know, we also have to understand, too, that for the folks we may not prefer in leadership or in office at all, but who are going to be there serving in whatever capacity, for those of us who are there with them, our responsibility between election cycles is holding our own colleagues to account and moving them towards the moral center, not the political center. And that is something that people should want their newly elected incumbents to do, because listen, we have a clear villain here. You know, it's Trump, it's MAGA extremism, it's fascism, it's late stage capitalism, it's any number of things. But we can't make our colleagues the enemy. They may be not on the same page with us, but it's our responsibility to make them.
We can't make our colleagues the enemy, even if they're corporate Democrats, which you rightly and correctly ran against a month ago. He's already talking like he's been in Congress for 50 years. Chris.
Do better. And we have seen some progress when we have, not myself quite yet, but others in Congress get some of their colleagues to stop taking AIPAC money. That's a win. And we need to respect that. And we also need to understand that that comes with certain risks for the people who have been funded by folks we don't.
I'm really sick of this argument. Not taking AIPAC money, but still taking J Street money, the way Bernie Sanders does. Or worse, actually, not taking AIPAC money, but still being a Zionist, like AOC is. AOC is a Zionist. That's almost worse. You're trying to triangulate Zionism into, okay, I, as a member of Congress, will still be a Zionist. I just won't take money from this one lobbying group. But I'll take money from all of these other lobbying groups, just not that one. And I'll still be a Zionist who supports a two-state solution, blah, 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 blah. So what if you don't take AIPAC money? You're still doing their bidding for fucking free. AOC voted to conflate for a resolution conflating anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism. She doesn't take AIPAC money. She did it for free. Not taking AIPAC money is not a win on its own unless it's followed with fucking policy, like supporting equal rights from the river to the sea and the one-state solution and the right of return of Palestinian refugees and their descendants, which you, Chris, said in your platform that you support. How are you going to get the other members of Congress like Hakeem Jeffries, who does take AIPAC money, who nobody primaried this year, or nobody is primarying this year? How are you going to get him to move? By asking nicely? Is that the plan?
Believe they should be funded by, which also means we need to support them if they're truly understanding of why that dynamic is so problematic.
I wanted to get you to weigh in on what's going on right now with Graham Plattner up in Maine, because I do think it has some important fissures here in terms of the direction of the Democratic Party. You know, his ideological program and yours is not exactly the same, but you're more or less in the same lane and have, similar views of the world. And certainly, have been clear-cut, clear-throated opponents of genocide, of AIPAC funding and the influence of the Israel lobby. He has faced a number of allegations, some of which he's, acknowledged that he had a very rough go of it after serving in the military, that he had a drinking problem, he has PTSD, that he engaged.
Bestie. Hi. Bestie. You know who has PTSD more than Plattner? The way he says he does? The families of the people he killed in Iraq and Afghanistan, which he called an adventure, the most enjoyable experience of his lifetime. I bet I would highlight their pain and their suffering over his.
In toxic behavior and relationships, other aspects of which he's completely denied. There was an allegation from a Republican political operative that he had grabbed her by the shoulders forcefully, that he had yanked her by the hand out of a cab, that he had put her arm behind her back and pushed her inside of a room. Again, she says this occurred, he denies it, and the New York Times was unable to confirm it. I wonder what you make of the allegations and also what has been seen as extreme scrutiny into his life that doesn't seem to be matched with a level of scrutiny into others who do not challenge the oligarchy and do not challenge, AIPAC and the status quo on Israel.
What is this? What are you doing? What are you doing? Is this the DNC media hour? What the fuck is this? Is this the Democratic Operatives channels? Do you think people are too stupid to understand what you're doing when you frame that question that way? It's so gross. You're a real journalist. You are. I know you are. I know you are because I admire your work. This is pathetic. This is insulting to my intelligence and to everybody, every other writer who loves you. or loved you. You're calling us stupid. Do you think everybody's going after Graham Plattner because he's anti-oligarch and anti-Israel? What's your response to the fact that there are allegations from a Republican operative that the New York Times couldn't corroborate? Do you think people are stupid? Do you think that little of us? Like, I'm actually offended. I'm actually offended. Either you really think that little of your viewers, which I hope is not the case. I don't know what else they would be, actually. Do you think you can get away with a loaded framing of a question that's so biased? It's actually repulsive. For someone who left MSNBC and criticizes them for being so overtly pro-Democrat, this is too much for MSNBC. Or whatever they call themselves now, MS Now. This is too much for them. They would call you after that and be like, hey, tone it down. The partisan bullshit, tone it the fuck down. I hate this. I hate this because it's so transparent. It hurts your credibility, at least in my eyes. Maybe not the audience that has become Breaking Points' customer base. But this is really embarrassing. Just ask questions that are like straight. Or, you know what? Don't listen to me.
As aggressively as he does.
Yeah, this is challenging for me because I felt that folks who have been identified as hard-scrabbled, populist, left of center, white guys get far more leeway than folks like me, Black progressives. And that's a double standard that is largely based on race. And I think that's a conversation we need to have. If I had some problematic tattoo that related to white folk, I don't think I would be viable, even in the majority Black district, because I think the money would not be there for me to run the campaign I needed. I think there's a clear double standard that the left has to talk about as it relates to our racial politics and what is acceptable. And, I also have PTSD. I have actual PTSD. And I also have political PTSD because in this state, we elected a fake populist in Fetterman. And when I feel Fetterman vibes, I get very, very nervous. I don't know Plattner. I've not followed his race closely. I've had.
All right, Congressmember Rabb, you have me on board again. Total agreement. Props to you for calling out the double standard from mostly almost 99% white progressive commentators who treat Plattner like a king, refuse to criticize him for reasons we're going to remind ourselves of in a few minutes, and for bringing up the Fetterman political PTSD, which is a brilliant framing on your part. Yeah, you can run a campaign on saying the right things. It doesn't mean you're gonna actually follow through on them. As soon as Fetterman got into office, he changed every position he ever had and became essentially a Republican. I'm sure I don't need to throw out my conspiracy theories out here. But yeah, what's going to stop Plattner from doing a heel turn? Exactly. We should be more critical. We should scrutinize these candidates more. Just because they say what sounds like the right thing doesn't mean they're honest or they mean it. And actually looking at their past behavior is the only way we can sort of assess whether they're serious or they're just lying out of all of their holes, right? So props to you, and I'm in complete agreement.
A grueling 10-month campaign I'm just coming out of. So now I'm really seeing what's on the landscape of opportunity in the House and the Senate. But I do think we need to hold space for folks with genuine grievances, and we need to have a process for those folks who are expressing legitimate concerns about the behaviors and choices of candidates, but to do so in a way that is in the spirit of restorative justice, as opposed to the spirit of the politics of personal destruction. And I think that is something that is really, really necessary, because what we don't want to do is to silence or erase the voices of people who have felt real harm, particularly women. But we also have to make sure that we do not feel that there's a class of candidate that has to be perfect. There are no perfect candidates.
Okay, before the perfect candidates part, I just want to commend him for actually taking people's concerns about Plattner seriously instead of doing what Crystal just did and dismissing them in the middle of the question. Because she's so committed to shilling for Plattner and helping Democrats recapture the Senate like a good little girl working for the Democratic Party. I think props to Chris Rabb for actually saying, no, we need to take people's concerns seriously. And actually, I think if the Democratic Party tries to sweep what they always do, try to sweep concerns under the rug, pretend they don't exist, delegitimize people's concerns, delegitimize people who make those concerns and say, those are Republican operatives, those are bad people trying to hurt our candidate Plattner because he's anti-oligarch and anti-Israel, and you go and vote for him. You know what those people are not going to do in November? Vote for fucking Plattner. Now look, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Maine is totally so fucking on board, in which case, why are you even delegitimizing the criticism? Are you scared that someone in Maine is going to change their mind because of someone like neoliberal theorists saying, hey, Plattner could end up being exactly like fucking Fetterman, who ran on all the right things and all the progressive stuff that everybody loves. You can't silence criticism and expect people to swallow it up and go vote for someone on election day. And again, it could be that there's no one critical of Plattner in the whole state of Maine. Actually, I think someone from Maine commented on the video I made about Plattner, so that's crazy. And they were very supportive. So, maybe it could be true that no one in Maine is critical of Plattner, in which case that criticism should not scare you to the point where you lie about it or delegitimize anyone who makes any criticism of Plattner. I just feel like it's like stifling real discussion that should be had about candidates. Like, we should be scrutinized, especially when they're still running, because you know what happens after they're elected? They're not accountable until 6 years later, when you can maybe primary them, like John Fetterman. But your only leverage with these pieces of shit, who I do call politicians, is before they're in office, not after.
And we also have to make sure that those candidates acknowledge their faults. Everyone has them, and how we work through them. So if he said, I have I understand when someone says, I made a bad choice as a young man and I was struggling with addiction and that sort of thing. We need to hold space for that. But you also may have intervening years or decades where you did not do any further introspection about what you've done, so that you can feel a sense of atonement that other people can value as legitimate long before you ever considered public office. We can hold those two truths at the same time.
So you don't believe he's done sufficient atonement to have sought public office?
I don't know. I don't know. But I think that is something that needs to be addressed before November 3rd. Absolutely.
Isn't that up to the voters to decide?
Well, it's not just voters who decide who's a viable candidate. Viability is also based on how much money you raise, what your platform is, how you come into, are you a movement candidate, or are you a candidate who says the right things in the right political moment to be aligned with a movement that shows considerable political power? I don't know. I've not watched his candidacy that closely to answer those questions, but those are conversations that need to happen within community and not on social media.
So he, just to be clear, he was a movement organizer.
Mr. Congressmember Rabb, I appreciate you. I would only take issue with this idea that those criticisms need to be aired out in private and not on social media, because the implication is that that Plattner shouldn't address those criticisms publicly, or that it should be kind of like a private Democrat thing where grievances are aired out and resolved and everybody holds hands after. I think that's skeevy because it's away from the public and people who might vote Democrat or not. I'm not a fan of doing things in private, because the way narcissists especially act in private, if Plattner is a narcissist, which I'm not alleging allegedly, but if he was, he would act very differently in private than he would in public. In public is where you actually can assess how someone reacts to things, whether they're sincere or insincere. So I wouldn't say that those conversations should happen away from social media. What's the threat? What's the threat? People with thoughts and feelings having reactions to someone who might hold one of the most powerful positions in the world for 6 years? No, they deserve to be scrutinized publicly. They signed up for this.
Or in Maine, which is how he came to the attention of people to encourage him to run for office. The primary is today in Maine. His, opponent, main opponent, was the former governor, or current governor, Janet Mills, who has suspended her campaign. She is not particularly ideologically aligned with you. She's much more supportive of our status quo with regard to Israel. She has, done things like veto tax hikes on the rich.
And we looked, sorry, Bestie, didn't mean to interrupt you there. But we did look at Plattner's website, and his section on Gaza was 3 sentences long. His entire section on Palestine was 3 sentences long, and said, yes, Gaza was going through a genocide. You know what it didn't say? Anything about the one-state solution or equal rights from the river to the sea. You know what it didn't say? Anything about the right of return for Palestinian refugees. Right, Sam? Right, Sam? Sorry, he jumped on my chair, but he had to weigh in. So presenting Plattner, and also Crystal called him an anti-Zionist in one of her tweets from, I think, yesterday, which pisses me off, because anti-Zionism has a very clear, short, and very clear, succinct definition that Graham Plattner never identified as. So presenting him as this anti-Israel hero when he never said anything of the sort. He never said he was anti-Zionist. I'd love to see it. Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. Show me where he said he was anti-Zionist. I'd support it. Show me where he supports the right of return of Palestinian refugees and their descendants to their original homes and the one-state solution. Your job as a journalist is to hold these candidates to a higher standard than your wishful fucking thinking. You get paid for this. And instead of working for the people, you're working for candidates who, for all we know, could be lying pieces of shit. Are you working for the party? Or are you working for your viewers? You do have to decide at some point. You can't be both.
In the state of Maine, she's had an adversarial relationship with labor unions. If you were looking at this race, do you think that voters would be better off choosing her because she's had fewer personal controversies?
What is this fucking straw man? She already suspended her campaign, Janet Mills. So now you're coming at Chris because he criticized your one shot at retaking the Senate. You're saying, oh, so would you support a Republican? Would you support Janet Mills? Isn't he better than the alternative Janet Mills? He's already the nominee. She suspended her campaign. Why are you so allergic to criticism? Why are you more committed to helping? You're not helping Democrats win, by the way. I don't think you are. We'll see. We'll see in November, I guess. I don't know. Could be wrong.
Then Graham Plattner?
No, it's a matter of how we hold the people who we would prefer in office to account. I think that's the issue, right? Because sometimes we vote for people. Well, sometimes we vote.
What do you mean by that? Look at Fetterman. He ran on all the right buzzwords. And then he gets elected, and guess what? He can tell you to fuck off. He can not you. He can tell the left to fuck off, progressives to fuck off, and become the most disgusting creature that ever walked. Like, what are you? Why are you playing stupid? You know exactly what Chris is saying. And it's a concern that broadly the left shares and that you never air out. That's going to have consequences for your beloved party.
For people, right? And sometimes we vote for the person who we have a better chance of holding to account and making sure that the candidate functions similarly once in office, right? Because it's very easy, particularly in these moments, to campaign as a progressive. It's radically harder to govern as a progressive. And I speak as someone who is currently in legislative session here in Pennsylvania, in Harrisburg, in the largest full-time state legislature in the country. It is very hard to govern as a progressive. And so how we hold anyone to account, myself included, is by making sure that they fulfill their promises that they made in the campaign, on the campaign trail, and making sure that they will sit down in earnest with people who have genuine concerns and priorities that may not be fully aligned by the time someone wins their primary.
One more on this, because you mentioned you got Fetterman vibes from Plattner. I want to explore that a little bit more. So Fetterman and Plattner have actually been going back and forth with each other. Fetterman's been attacking him. Graham Plattner has been responding, I think, called Fetterman an asshole. Let's go ahead and take a listen to a little bit of how John Fetterman went after Graham Plattner.
For me, as a Democrat, I'm never going to carry water for a guy that shooting innocent civilians. Have no problem posing in a towel at a disgusting website that consistently has serious problems about that kinds of depravity.
So I wonder if you could respond there to Senator Fetterman, but also I am curious for you to elaborate when you say that Plattner, you're getting Fetterman vibes from him. What is it specifically that you're responding to there?
No, I wasn't specifically referring to Plattner regarding Fetterman vibes, but here in Pennsylvania, I get that when people say, oh, I like what you're saying, you seem to be right on all the issues, but how do I know you're not going to be the next Fetterman? So that actually applies to me as well. When people are very traumatized in Pennsylvania and beyond, when they think that they're electing a progressive populist and they get something very different. I don't know Plattner enough to weigh in on that specifically, but I can tell you that, I don't know how many black folk you're polling or talking to, but all I can say is we need to have more conversations about what accountability looks like for folks who are running to the left, and making sure that we understand the intersectional nature of progressivism and ensure that folks' racial politics.
Sorry, I think he said intersectional, but just in case. Yeah, you missed it. Yeah,
are aligned with the populist politics that are trending so well these days. That's all.
Yeah, I think that's well understood. So last question for you, Representative, is, when/if, but looking like when you get to Washington, what will be some of your first priorities you would like to work on there? How will you operate in a way that you think is different from how a lot of other members operate?
Sure. Well, just to be clear, I'm not an optimist by nature, but there's no Republican on the ballot, and there are more raccoons than Republicans in my district. So I think it's safe to say that I'll be in Congress on January 3rd. So we have to de-Trumpify Washington, D.C. All the choices, appointments, cuts, all of the structural fissures and such, we need to do what we can to restore or prepare for their restoration. And we also need to build a bold vision in a post-Trump world. And, frankly, that may happen long before 2 years. What does that look like? So he's been a wonderful villain, but, people are struggling. They need to know what Democrats envision for a society with people closest to the pain struggling like never before, and making sure that we are clear with that message and consistent, and make sure that we hit all of those people, particularly folks who, generally speaking, the Democratic Party counts out and disregards, who really should be centered. The people closest to the pain, young people, poor people, black folk. I'm going to keep bringing up black folk. If we do not take care of black women, we will lose, and we do not deserve to lead if we do not understand the primacy of black women. When we help black women, we help everybody.
Future Congressman Chris Rabb, thank you so much for joining us and taking the time. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Hey, if you want
one thing I wanted to share, I think when Chris said that there are more raccoons than Republican voters in his district, I wanted to share this video that I took a little bit earlier. I screenshotted it from a TikTok account called A Damn Good Coffee.
This is Bean.
Okay, so here's what's going on here. There's a I believe this person is a wildlife rehabber, so he goes live on TikTok every night. I believe he also sells coffee to help fund his help for wildlife. But he goes live every day, and he provides food and water to raccoons. And so I just wanted to share this video to recommend, this is something I watched him recommend once, is that if you live next to wildlife, or if there are raccoons in your neighborhood, it would be, or opossums or any kind of wildlife, if you can leave a bowl of water outside, it really, really, really helps them, because sometimes wildlife doesn't have access to fresh water. So I just wanted to share a little bit of this.
Okay, cool, Casey. Here, we'll throw some back there for them. But yeah, we moved.
And look at their bench. They have a little bench to eat. It's so cute. They're so cute.
Moved the rug a little closer, and then that way I can still throw stuff down to like get to the mamas and babies, but then not as much will fall through. So, oh, you have a 3-legged one. You named it Tripod. That's so cute. So yeah, Monroe's not here yet. There we go. And yeah, I agree. They're so cute. And then, really, Bubba? How about you look behind you? Bubba. She's picky about what peanuts she'll eat. So if I wait, she'll eat the other ones. But if she has her way... Good grief. Girl, you are so spoiled. But yeah, if she has her way... See, she wants me to put more. Here, back up. Back up, Mama. You gotta back up. Here. There you go.
So yeah, Chris, if you're watching this, sorry, I have to laugh. Of course he's not. Chris, if you are, if someone sends this to you, please, because you mentioned there are more raccoons in your district than Republican voters, if you can just leave out a bowl of water for them every night, it's not hard, right? Just fill up some water. It really, really, really helps them, especially in the hot summers. Look at them; they're precious. They're so cute. We have to protect them. I do that every night. I hope you join me if you're one of the 5 people who watch this. I believe I went from 4 to 5, which is crazy. I don't know what to do with all this fame. Anyway, that's my raccoon PSA. I had to share this, and this account is on TikTok. It's called A Damn Good Coffee, and he shares his raccoon family and showing their life and sharing it with the world, which we are so lucky to be able to partake in. So thank you, A Damn Good Coffee. And okay, I wanted to remind us too about why Democrats, like insert name here, are also obsessed with helping Graham Plattner win, even if he's a serial killer, no matter what. And this is the article from Politico, quoting all kinds of strategists and other snakes. Winning Maine is all but a necessity for Democrats' chances of taking back the Senate this fall. Collins is the only Republican senator up for re-election this year. In a state, former Vice President Kamala Harris won in 2024. If Democrats can't knock her off, if Democrats can't knock her off, they'd have to win a far redder state, such as Iowa or Texas, to get control of the upper chamber. Do we really think Democrats have a chance of winning Texas or Iowa? Of course not. So that's why they have to win Maine or they lose the Senate. Everyone realizes that without Maine, the path to taking back the Senate is impossible. Impossible. So that's why Krystal was obsessed with trying to get Chris Rabb to say, yeah, I'll campaign for Graham Plattner. Yeah, go Plattner. Because go Plattner means Democrats recapture the Senate. And to Krystal and Ryan Graham, friends of the show, that's all that matters. Nothing else matters. No one else matters. The only thing that matters is Democrats picking up that sweet, sweet Senate spot and reclaiming a majority, which, as I predict, I am not psychic, by the way. Don't count on me, actually. But that's my predict. I like to think I'm intuitive. Sorry, I have to laugh. More so, I guess, I'm like, not intuitive. I'm not getting like messages. It's more of like a pattern recognition. And what I notice with the Plattner stuff and how progressive commentators, dare I say, white progressive commentators, are sweeping every criticism of him under the rug and ignoring the valid question on people's minds, which is, how do we know he's not going to end up being another Fetterman? Instead of trying to address that question, and I don't mean, oh, here's a clip of John Fetterman trashing Graham Plattner. That doesn't mean anything. Graham Plattner hasn't won his race yet. He's not in office. He's going to say all the right things right now, or what he thinks is the right things to say, because he's not in office. That's the question. And instead of holding him to some scrutiny, you're all acting as fucking cheerleaders. And it's repulsive and it's transparent. And as much as I love Krystal, professionally speaking, I love her professional work. I don't know anything about her personal life, and I don't care to. Not interested in any of that. But I love her work. And I know she's a good journalist. That's why I'm a fan. That's why I'm upset. And I thought it would also be useful to remind us of where those progressive commentators were when it came to Fetterman back in 2022, so many moons ago, 4 moons ago. Is that how we count moons, by years? 4 moons ago? Or is it every 90 days that a moon changes? 4 years ago, okay? 2022 is when John Fetterman was elected. Let's remind ourselves here, all right, of what was being said by the progressive commentator media class about John Fetterman. I think it's important. I think it's instructive. I do. So this was Hassan Piker back in 2022. Let's hear him. Let's hear him out. As soon as I get to the video. Here we go. Thank you for bearing with me. Okay.
Moral politics. How the fuck are you going to shit on John Fetterman? You're in the shit just like we are. You know what I mean? This is what you're going to get in Pennsylvania, especially. What are you expecting? He's super pro-labor.
So this was Hassan reacting to a chatter who had criticisms of John Fetterman before. Mind you, this was before the general election. So this is how he was responding to criticism of John Fetterman from the left. It's important.
Moral politics. How the fuck are you going to shit on John Fetterman? You're in the shit just like we are. You know what I mean?
How dare you shit on John Fetterman? He called criticism shitting on him. How dare you? How dare you?
This is what you're going to get in Pennsylvania, especially. What are you expecting? He's super pro-labor.
This is what you're going to get.
He's a pro-Medicare for all. He's been a big Bernie supporter since the jump. And this interviewer is not fucking running around and being like, well, that means nothing, literal nothing. Okay, well, again, I am a political commentator. I'm gonna talk a little bit about marginal change every now and then, and I will go so far as to say that more John Fetterman's ultimately is a good thing. Straight up, John Fetterman is a good candidate. If the Democratic Party was comprised of more John Fettermans, the Democratic Party would unironically be significantly closer to pushing for socializing key aspects of American existence. 100%. What I'm simply stating is, leftists need to stop looking at a gift horse in the mouth, okay? But leftists, of course, have this painful inability not to apply the most vicious and bad faith critique.
This pisses me off so much. First of all, I don't know what analogy he was using there with like the horse in the mouth. Maybe Fetterman is the horse. I don't want to insult horses, actually. I think we can all agree. This is ridiculous. And I think this is why it's really important that people who have criticisms of Plattner turning into another piece of shit senator, it's really important to not shit on them because they're fucking right to be skeptical. They're right to be critical. And I hate how people like this, I'm sorry, Hassan, I know you're a friend of the show, and I support you supporting the one-state solution. I defended you so much when it came to your exhausting debate with Ethan Decline. But this, shitting on the left for having criticisms of Fetterman, well, guess what? You were wrong. You were wrong, and whoever that person who challenged you on this was fucking right. So have some humility here. Have some fucking humility. I know that you're invested for some reason in helping Democrats win at all costs. But shitting on people with rightful criticism for leftists and making it an attack, like attacking the left to defend John Fetterman, how do you think that makes you look right now? Are we closer to Medicare for all because Fetterman supported it? Are we closer? I wish these people had, maybe they're not, I don't know. I don't want to overuse that word, so I'm not going to say it, but like have some humility.
The people that are on their side and try to dogpile on everyone as best as possible. My point is, listen, brother, we're already in the zone. We're not talking about like fucking Vanguard Party shit. We're not talking about seizing the means of production. We're talking about the Democratic Party's chances in the Pennsylvania Senate race. So if you're in here, you know that's my analysis. You know I'm talking about that. You know my worldview outside of that. But if I'm talking about this and you're trying to fucking bring the conversation back to like some other larger picture, then you're just being ridiculous.
No, you were being ridiculous, Hassan. You were being fucking ridiculous. And everybody can see through your bullshit. I'm sorry, this is bullshit. Just admit you're a Democrat. Stop cosplaying as a whatever, socialist, supporting marginal positive change on the edges. No, you were excusing correct criticism of John Fetterman, and look how stupid that makes you look. And it's going to keep making you look stupid as long as electing Democrats is your one and only motivator and making money, I guess, in any of this. Here's another friend of the show. And by friend, I mean Ryan Grimm. And he tweeted this on May 3rd, 2022. Okay? Manchin endorsed Lamb. Sorry, he was reacting to this. So here's someone that I don't particularly know, actually, or, care about. Somebody here said, Dr. Jason Johnson said, Fetterman might join Manchin and Sinema as a conservative voting bloc, which is what happened, by the way. And still, if nothing gets done, that's not an unlikely possibility. Ryan Grimm replied and said Manchin endorsed Lamb. Lamb was John Fetterman's opponent in the primary. So Ryan Grimm here was trying to say, oh, Manchin supported Fetterman's opponent. So that makes so that makes Fetterman the progressive hero. Manchin endorsed Lamb. Tim Ryan and John Fetterman would both be normal D votes. Normal Democrat votes. John Fetterman would be a normal Democrat vote. The senator who ended up voting for the Laken Riley Act, for the senator who ended up voting against the War Powers Resolution, John Fetterman would be a normal, reliable just another regular D vote. This is who people pay for analysis on politics. Ryan Grimm. Just lying out of his mouth. Liar, liar, liar. I hate to do this. I hate to do this. So we saw Hassan, we saw Ryan Grimm. Unfortunately, I have to remind people of what my bestie said about John Fetterman. I hate this too, bestie. Trust me, I hate this. I hate doing this. May 18th, 2022. How do you write about an entire article about progressive electoral results and not mention that Fetterman, while laying in a hospital bed, still managed to wallop corporate establishment darling Connor Lamb? Corporate establishment darling Connor Lamb. And to be clear, Connor Lamb was a corporate establishment darling. And so was John Fetterman. And the anti-establishment label is just branding that Fetterman adopted to get elected and dropped and kicked to the curb as soon as he was elected. And guess which lobby he went to first? As soon as he was elected? All of them. All of the lobbies. The prison industrial complex lobby, the Israel lobby, any lobby you can think of. Because you celebrated him as an anti-establishment candidate without any criticism whatsoever, or thoughtful skepticism, which is the job of a journalist. You either created a wishful thinking world where John Fetterman was a progressive advocate for Medicare for all, or you knew you were full of shit and you were lying. Which one is it? I think for Ryan Grimm, lying is always the motivator. Crystal, I want to give her much more benefit of the doubt because I'm a softie, as you can tell. Just kidding. It's shameful. It's shameful that these people now pretend like any criticism of Plattner has no basis in reasoned reality. Voters are right to be skeptical of Plattner turning into a Fetterman. Look how you were acting with John Fetterman. And look how John Fetterman turned out. You have to respond to this at a certain point. Or do what you do, sweep it under the rug, and see what happens. Really, I'm not here to be listened to. Let's see this one. Let's see this one. Sorry, bestie. I hate to keep doing this. I hate this too. I hate this too. Trust me. I don't want to be here. Fetterman leaned into so this is also from 2022. Fetterman leaned into economic populism, pro-union, anti-corporate, price gouging. He was the furthest left of the damn Senate candidates and won the most in these, even after suffering a stroke. Dems have a winning model in economic populism if they care to embrace it. He was the furthest left of the Dem Senate candidates. Maybe that's true. Maybe that's true. But that's just rhetoric. That's just words. That's just promises. Dems have a winning model in economic populism if they care to embrace it. So the winning model that you're referencing here is campaigning on economic populism. And if I heard the word fucking populism one more fucking time, I'm sorry, it's so co-opted, it's so abused. It means absolutely nothing. But really what you're saying is, and this is the only area where Democrats are going to listen to Crystal, right? It's on messaging and how to help candidates up for election, right? They don't care about, they do not care what Crystal has to advise when it comes to policy, trust me. It's just how to help. So if your model is how to help liars get elected, you found it. Promise the right stuff. It's not like some brilliant analysis. You promise all the right things, or what you think are the right things, and it's not that hard to come to a conclusion on what the saying the right things means. The question you're not asking yourself is how to, as a journalist, I'm pretty sure that it's your job, or at least as someone who consumes a lot of journalism, that's what I'm looking for, is people who can pierce through the lies and suss out whether people are, whether candidates are serious about the things that they say and whether they mean what they say, or if they just found a model, an economic populist model that they can use as a formula, get elected, and forget about it for 6 years. How do you not have any regrets about the role you played in promoting John Fetterman so aggressively as an economic populist? Do you not have any remorse as a person in the media? If someone listened to you in Pennsylvania and they were like, yeah, I guess he's an economic populist, maybe he's gonna change things for the better for me. How does it not factor into your political worldview that people can just embrace a model and lie? I wish journalists like Crystal, like Emma Weyland, Ryan Grimm, he's too far gone, not gonna go there. I wish they actually tasked themselves with advocating for their viewers and voters, and try to suss out politicians and see where, and basically relentlessly scrutinize them, uncover their hypocrisy, expose their hypocrisies. And I'm not saying in their personal lives, although that could be a factor. I'm saying in terms of their political, so-called purported political worldview. You're supposed to scrutinize these people, not act as an unpaid cheerleader for them. And I don't think John Fetterman paid Crystal. I don't think that's the calculation. I think it's what we saw from that article. People like Crystal and Ryan and Hassan are very invested in Democrats winning the Senate, and Plattner happens to be running in Maine, and Maine is the state that Democrats need to win to recapture the Senate, or else if Plattner loses Maine, Democrats have to win a Senate seat in Texas or Iowa, which is not going to happen. And we lose on analysis that holds candidates to a higher, to rightful scrutiny and to a higher standard, because these people are compromised. I don't know what other word there is for that kind of bullshit. Okay, last thing I was going to share. Thank you for anyone who might be watching this later. I'm sad I didn't have any viewers today. Fascism Watch, I think, might be doing something else. Fascism Watch, I've missed you. Your presence is missed. Seeking Truth in K9, your presence is also missed. It's just been me and my cats. So before I let you go, I wanted to share this about someone who's advising Graham Plattner and also advised John Fetterman. It's a Democratic strategist. Democratic consultant. Who is behind something called, I'll make it a little bigger. Something called the Fight Agency PAC. His name is Morris Katz. So let's read this here. This is the tweet being being quoted. Morris Katz, the Dem consultant behind Plattner, explains that this goal is to expand the Democratic Party's coalition by rebranding it after its 2024 humiliation. Lots of people collaborating with this effort after claiming they'd abandon institutions responsible for the Gaza genocide. And this is from this account, the Liberation Project. This is the scumbag consultant that is behind the Fight Agency PAC that is trying to co-opt left-wing energy and funnel it into the Democratic Party. You saw this with Fetterman, Mamdani, and now Plattner. Reject the genocidal Democratic Party, full stop. This is a real current of criticism that exists on the American left now. Whether leftists should still invest in the Democratic Party at all after the genocide, or really invest in candidates who triangulate the genocide into palatable, quote-unquote, liberal Zionism. Really, out of the group of names being mentioned here, because Morris Katz also advised Zoran Mamdani, I do give Zoran Mamdani more props than any of the other names being listed, because Zoran actually stood on business in supporting the one-state solution and equal rights from the river to the sea during his primary and during the general election. He never wavered. I think Zoran, for that reason, has more credibility with me personally. I don't judge anybody who disagrees with that. But basically, this is sort of the behind-the-scenes look at who is advising Plattner, who advised Fetterman, and what are his goals. So let's hear it from him. It's only a few seconds long.
How many think pieces have been written about how do we win back angry young men, and we have someone who was one of them and who made it out the other side, who's uniquely equipped to bring them back into our fold. And the idea that we should dismiss them or that's disqualifying, I think is, that doesn't quite make sense of the way we talk about who we want to be as a party and how we want to expand our coalition. How many think pieces have been written about how do we win back angry young.
All right. So you see his goal, he's saying it pretty explicitly, is to bring voters back into the Democratic Party after everything they've done. That's the goal. That's the goal. Everything else is in service of that goal. I think with Plattner, it's going to be a failure. And Democrats like him are going to blame it on tons of shit, right? They're going to blame the corporate media. They're going to blame it on the New York Times pieces. They're going to blame it on Plattner. They're going to blame it on the tattoo. They're going to blame it on pesky little leftists like me having criticisms, God forbid. They're going to blame it on a lot of things. But the important thing that I think, the only thing that matters is that Plattner is going to lose the general. I think that's, to me, from my pattern recognition skills, is pretty clear. And I think people like this guy, Morris Katz, are skeevy. I do. Because they're not saying, oh, here's what I would have respected. is if he said something to the extent of the Democratic Party committed genocide, we need to remove anyone who participated or even remotely participated in and enabling and enacting and continuing and supporting this genocide out of the party, out of everything, because the voters that left us and that we are trying to appeal to and have come back to the party deserve a party that works for them. And we're not getting that with the people who were literally just in charge and are still hanging on to the Democratic Party like leeches, like Jake Sullivan, like Ben Rhodes, like all of these pieces of shit. No. He's not saying any of that. He's just saying, how do I, as a Democratic consultant, craft a vision, a message that brings these stupid fucking voters back to vote for us? Even if we don't offer them a policy that's substantively different than what we offered them 3 years ago. He's not saying we need to change our policies as a Democratic Party. He's saying we just need a different face. Different candidates with a different face pushing the same bullshit. Fuck you, Morris. Fuck you. And there are people who are trying to make the Democratic Party better from within, but those are people who are fighting for the Democratic Party to adopt better policies. That's not Morris. Morris is just making money on, and this is a sports game for him. You know, he's trying to like find new players, you know, send them money, making ads for them, and rebranding the Democratic Party when it didn't even change any of its policies. Let's see if it's going to work. Anywho, thank you for joining me if you have. Later on, Fascism Watch, I missed you. Seeking Truth and K9, I missed you as well. I hope you get to catch this later. Hope you're okay and doing well as could be. And anybody else who might be watching this, thank you. Thank you for hanging out with me. I hope you're also doing well. And if you have any ideas of clips I should react to that have to do with Palestine or the one-state solution, please leave them in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. And I'll be here tomorrow. So thank you so much for joining me. And as always, free Palestine from the river to the sea.